very excited and honored to have Lizbeth Mateo and Zach Ingrasci here with us today. Zach is one of the founders of Optimus, a nonprofit production studio that creates films with an impact, and also one of the directors of the new documentary called The Undocumented Lawyer, which follows Lizbeth, who became a lawyer, started her own law practice, and took an oath to uphold the US Constitution while being undocumented in this country. Beginning in March 2021, you'll be able to watch The Undocumented Lawyer on HBO Latino and HBO Max. Please welcome Lizbeth and Zach to You Me Chisme. Welcome.
Hi. Welcome.
Hi. Thanks so much for having us. I'm a big fan of the podcast. And
Thank you.
I was listening to some older episodes, and I have to call out Adrian here because I think I was mentioned in one of them.
Okay, I didn't know we were going to talk about this, but listen, I was at the mall. I don't know what I was doing, but I was at the mall. I was shopping, and I got a text from Zach, and he's like, "Glad to hear I made it onto the podcast." And I was like,
all your listeners, you can go back, listen to the dating episode and figure out who I may or may not be. I was actually like immediately, I was like, oh no, is this like a call out podcast? Like, is he going to name me? Like, what did I do? And then you were very, very nice. So it was great. And we're really excited to be on and finally sharing this film, which, Lizbeth and I have been working on and our team have been working on for 3 years now, and finally it's available to watch for this super limited time before it eventually releases on HBO, which could not be, it is totally a dream come true.
Very, very exciting. Julie uses my HBO Max login, so
I do.
Julie will be able to watch whenever she
Yes,
wants.
I do.
So we watched the movie this week, and Julie texted me a photo of her crying after she had finished watching the movie. It is really well done. It's such an important story. I think it's something that matters to Julie and I a lot because we come from families that were undocumented. We have people that are undocumented in our families. And like so many of us living here have to deal with this on a daily basis. So kudos to both of you. It is really well done. And I really, really hope that many, many, many people get to watch it because it's really an important story. So we have a couple questions that we have for you guys. I'm going to start off with Zach. Zach, can you tell us a little bit about how you became aware of Lizbeth's story and what was the moment that you decided you needed to tell her story?
Yeah, so basically I've been filming with a friend of ours for the last 10 years or so for another film. He was going through his immigration case in the US. It is such a nightmare. I mean, it is like trying to understand tax code. As many of you might know, like you aren't guaranteed a lawyer, which is insane. And obviously we reached out to Lizbeth just to like hear her opinion and get some advice. And, we had read about her in the New York Times, and luckily she lives close by. And we quickly found out that Lizbeth not only is an amazing lawyer, but also goes so far beyond that and really empowers her clients, like you see in the film, The Undocumented Lawyer, the short, with her client Adith. It's not just about, how do we fight this case? It's so much bigger than that. How do you like learn to fight your case? And I think seeing that and seeing just how inspiring and, how Lizbeth approaches this from such an intelligent angle, both from advocacy and law, like it just felt like we had to tell this story. And a short film is just such a labor of love. You never know where it's going to end up. It's you never expect someone like HBO to show it, and it premiered at Tribeca. I mean, in the middle of COVID, unfortunately, but still, I mean, it's such an incredible team kind of team effort here, and collaborating with Lizbeth was like such a joy. Not all subjects are like that, so it's been a really cool process.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's so good. For Lizbeth, I actually wasn't aware that you could become a lawyer in California if you were an undocumented immigrant. I'm just wondering how, one, you found out that it was possible, why you wanted to become a lawyer, and kind of what the process was to do it. Do you consider it was different or difficult to people who are not, as opposed to people who are not undocumented?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Zach, thank you for saying that I was a joy to work with, because I know I can be difficult sometimes, and sorry for not responding to your emails on a timely manner sometimes. But so Julie, going back to your question, I've always wanted to be an attorney since I was a kid. I remember always telling my parents that I wanted to be an attorney or a doctor. And, you know, my parents only have a 6th grade education, but they are the most amazing and wisest people and smartest people I know. So they never told me, oh, no, you can't do it. You know, we were low income. My dad was a taxi driver in our hometown in Mexico, in Oaxaca, where I was born and raised until I was 14. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom. She would sell things in a little store that she had, but you know, we didn't have money. But my parents never said, oh, you can't do it. I think that in great part, we moved to this country, we immigrated to this country so that my parents could give me and my siblings a better life, a chance to actually go to college. And so my dad, the first thing he said when we arrived to Los Angeles was, your only job is to go to school. And so I took that very seriously. And I always thought, you know, if you're willing to work, if you're willing to put in the work, doors will open up and people will see that you're capable and that you actually want to do certain things, and they're going to give you that chance. But as I grew up and realized that my undocumented status will make it very difficult for me to not just go to college, pay for college, but actually become an attorney, it was very discouraging at times. And so there were so many times that I thought about going back to Mexico, about becoming an attorney there, always with the idea of, if I go back, I'm going to become an attorney. But I was very lucky that I met people while I was in college that encouraged me to just keep going. I was able to get a scholarship and study for the LSAT without having to pay for the LSAT. So that was a great help. And when it came time to apply, I had already taken the LSAT. I became an organizer right after, well, during college, and then after college, my organizing intensified. So I kind of made a promise to my mom that I was going to stop doing all the crazy things I was doing, organizing, getting arrested, putting myself in rule proceedings, and that I was going to go to law school. So I finally decided to apply. At the time, undocumented students couldn't become attorneys in California. So it was not until my first year in law school that the California Supreme Court and the California legislature, both almost at the same time, decided that undocumented people could become attorneys. So I started law school without the assurance that I was going to be able to become an attorney, but with the hope that things would change. So I kind of took my life in increments of like 2 or 3 years and set goals for finishing college, getting to law school, finishing my first year, second year, third year, graduating. But luckily, you know, while I was in law school, California started allowing undocumented people to become attorneys. It was very difficult. I almost quit law school my first year. I think that in part because I was, like I said, I was an organizer, and I struggled so much with whether I fit in law school, whether it was the right thing to do, because I was not organizing anymore. I was not helping people stop their deportations as an organizer. So it was very difficult. But I was very lucky to also found people that understood what I was going through and encouraged me to just think about my life or what I was supposed to do in increments of a semester. There was always, what am I going to do this semester? What do I need to achieve this semester? And then think about the next phase later. So that's how I was able to survive. But it was not easy. It was very difficult.
I bet. That's amazing that you started the journey not knowing whether you'd end up doing. Did you have a plan B? Was there a other possibility, or was it just let's hope for the best and see what happens?
I think it was a mix of let's hope for the best, but also I knew that I was going to fight to actually become an attorney. So I wanted to have that degree and then figure out advocacy efforts or maybe a campaign or something later once I graduated to actually become an attorney, a licensed attorney, to be able to practice law in California. But I didn't have to do that because there were other students, other law graduates that were also undocumented who had been fighting that fight for quite a while. And so it got to a point where they were able to convince the California Supreme Court and the legislature to allow us, them, and me in the future law students to be able to become attorneys, even if we didn't have legal status. So I was lucky that I didn't have to do all of that extra work. So I think it was a mixture of I'm willing to put in the work, but I'm also hopeful that things will change before I have to do all of that.
Right.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
This is a perspective that Lizbeth has that I don't go into the world being like, okay, this isn't possible, I'm just going to make it possible. And I think that's something we really wanted to capture in the film because it's such a tough thing to do when you are kind of breaking ground in a whole new space.
Totally.
Yeah.
And when I told Julie that Lizbeth was going to join us on the interview, Julie's like, amazing, she's a badass. And that first scene of you boxing, I was like, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It set the tone perfectly. Yeah.
Totally. Absolutely.
Lizbeth tells us that she likes to, I like to kickbox sometimes to like let off steam. We show up to the gym and it's like a full on, like she's sparring with this guy. I'm like, this is not what we prepared for. We were like,
right.
How do we make these shots look like really intense if it's just like a kickboxing kind of situation? And then it was amazing. I mean, I'm not a boxer, so Beth keeps telling me, if you were a boxer, you'd feel that. I was like, no, this isn't.
No. Yeah.
It was definitely fun, but it was fun.
It's such a foreshadowing to the story that is told in the film and all that you have to go through, because we see a little bit of the negative feedback that you get, the hate mail, being on Fox News, these men that are making videos, considering all of that and knowing that in order for you to continue to win this fight, you have to do it on a public stage. Have you ever thought that maybe not doing it publicly or not being the face of a movement is something that you have considered?
Well, first of all, I don't do the things that I do or that I've done in the past with the intention of becoming the face of anything. It's very uncomfortable for me actually to do sort of this public things. I do it because I think there's a need. As an advocate, now as an attorney, as an advocate, my job is to do the best I can for my clients. But I'm also myself undocumented, which means that I have to defend myself, I have to protect myself. And as an organizer, I think I learned early on that one way to stay safe, I still believe that even under this administration, is to be public about your case. And because for many years we live in the shadows, like we as undocumented people, we say that we lived in the shadows. And our families, other undocumented young people were being detained and deported without anyone knowing, without anyone lifting a finger, because no one knew. One day they could come to your house, knock on the door at 6 a.m. in the morning. By 10 a.m. you were in TJ, or you were on a plane back to your home country. So part of the reason I became very public about my case was for, I would say, selfish reasons, because I wanted to also protect myself and my family, but because I want to make sure that people know that there are ways to fight there are ways to survive. There are ways to thrive. So I'm at a point where I don't want to just survive. I want to make sure that people understand that we can thrive as undocumented people living in this country. Have there been instances where I felt like I shouldn't do things? Yes, definitely. There's very few things I regret. But I think there's been instances where the attacks turn very personal, not against me. You know, all those men doing all those videos on YouTube can say whatever, doesn't bother me. But there's been instances where they've turned the attacks against my nephew or against, you know, my family. And when they go after my baby, that's when I draw a line, because I just feel like, you know, I'm an adult. I'm a big girl. I understand what I'm doing. I take precautions, but I also know that there are risks. But when they go after people who can't defend themselves, that's when I become really upset.
Yeah, no, that's completely understandable. For Zach, I'm wondering, as the director, the story is so personal, and with Edith's story as well, it's so personal and so private. How do you, as a director, keep kind of a distance and don't get too emotionally involved in the subjects that you are documenting? Is that a line that gets blurred often, or do you kind of have to take a step back and maybe think about it more thoroughly once you're done filming?
Yeah, I don't think I successfully detach myself in any sense of the word. And, you know, as a documentary filmmaker, not as a journalist, we blur that line more. And really, from the beginning, we knew this film was about creating an impact, and we wanted to elevate, you know, Lizbeth's story and but just help support and grow, this incredible community that already surrounds Lizbeth. And the fun thing about this film is it's such a, and with every film, me and my co-director Chris Temple and my producer Jenna Kelly do, is we make sure that Lizbeth's a big part of it. So, she was able to see multiple cuts along the way and like really give feedback, and like that's something we found so important, like you said, when it's such a private and personal story, that we want to make sure we're doing it justice. And we have an incredible team. Brenda Avila Hanna is this EP and filmmaker that we've been working with through the whole process, that's been a huge part of also reviewing cuts and giving feedback, and the designers and everyone that's really kind of been doing this as a passion project. And there's nothing more fun than when that's possible, because it's not always possible to be so collaborative with the main subject of your film. But luckily Lizbeth is willing to engage and has really good feedback. So we're really excited to get the film out there. HBO is allowing us to do these impact events and actually fundraise for, we set up a fund called the Legal Fund to Protect Asylum Seekers, and it's actually funding Lizbeth's pro bono work to fund and protect and fight for people like Adith, who are on the front lines of this truly crazy and drawn out fight that we should all be talking way more about. And there's so much we can do, and we're just really excited to finally be able to support in a tangible way. So I think I'm so excited why the film is available and people can watch now and join with these live Q&As that we have tomorrow and everything. And
just to mention, Zach, you guys have also done Living on $1, Salam Neighbor, 5 Years North, and your projects have raised $91.5 million for all of these different causes. So hopefully,
yeah, it's I mean, our I didn't become I was an accidental filmmaker, basically. Like, I studied economics in college and kind of got into this accidentally while I was in school. We came out with Living on $1, which was our first film on Netflix, and it got posted next to House of Cards on the main banner of Netflix. This is way back when they would like promote little tiny docs, not a thing anymore. But yeah, millions and millions of people can see these films now on these streaming platforms, and we're no longer like in just art house theaters. And it's such a incredible way to elevate a story and actually either change minds, change lives, or change policy. And that's really how, the 91 million is an exciting number, but it's really when it comes down to these tangible impacts in the world, and we try and focus on stories where that can happen.
Totally. And I hope that, Lizbeth, you get just as much money and more, because it's
Yes.
necessary. I did have a question, not necessarily related to the particular film, but I am a big believer that QAnon and this president in the White House are doing extreme damage to this country in terms of the lies and the conspiracy theories that they put out there. And I think it's more damage than anybody really realizes. And a question to Zach and Lizbeth, feel free to chime in. What do you think that your role is in making these films and being a journalist, and Lizbeth, in agreeing to document your life, is in this world that we live in now, where there is so much misinformation that is thrown out there and is very dangerous?
Lizbeth, you go first.
Sure. Yeah, I know there's a lot of misconceptions about undocumented people and who we are, and there's been this dichotomy of the good immigrant versus the bad immigrant. And in telling this story, I'm not trying to in any way say that I'm perfect or that everyone can follow this journey, because everyone has a different journey. Everyone has different set of beliefs and opportunities. I've been very, very lucky to be able to, have access to education, even though it has taken me many more years than I thought it would take. But I wanted to participate in this film, mostly because Zach and Chris made me feel very comfortable and explain what the film was, what was the purpose of doing this film, and really made me a part of the decision making. And I really appreciate that. And they respected, my boundaries. They respected my opinions and took a lot of my suggestions and made changes that were very great. Working with, it was great working with them. But I think why I wanted to do this film was because there was a point where everyone was talking about DACA and dreamers and people with DACA, which is it's great, and people should talk more about it too. But they were forgetting that there's also other immigrants who don't necessarily have DACA, who have stories to tell. And so I wanted to try to help elevate some of those stories as well. So that's what, I insisted that we should also talk about my client Edith and the work that I was doing on that case, because there are many women like Edith who lost their asylum case. And this is exactly what's happening in this country, and not, I think, enough people are talking about it. The assault against asylum by this administration, and how they're trying to dismantle asylum for everyone, and how it doesn't matter how much harm has been done to these women, especially women, judges are still denying these cases. So I wanted to participate and highlight that story a little more, because I don't think anyone is, or not enough people are talking about it. So that's my role. I'm not a journalist. I don't pretend to be an expert on things, but I wanted to use my story and that of my client to try to educate people a little more on the issues that are really affecting our community.
And just to continue on what Lizbeth is saying, Adith in October will have now been living in this church for 3 years. And she has sought sanctuary in this church because this judge, who has like over a 90% decline rate of asylum cases, decided and fundamentally changed the course of her life. And attempted to separate her family, and she wasn't willing to accept that, and Lizbeth wasn't willing to accept that. And I mean, it's not like this fight started with this administration. Obama wasn't any better when it comes to immigration, and it's so important that we hear these stories as elections are happening, as we make these choices, because I mean, being able to film with Edith was such an honor, and she opened up her life inside this church, and I hope just people get to realize the urgency of the situation, and that's all we can do, I think, and just realize that this issue's become so politicized, destructive, that we need to move beyond that.
Totally.
I agree.
Did I freeze? Oh, okay. And thank you for mentioning Edith's story, because watching her speak at the church to the community members was such a major moment, because I think of a lot of people who don't, like my parents, who don't feel comfortable speaking Spanish, and who don't feel comfortable talking about immigration status, and don't feel comfortable doing all of this. But the fact that she is fighting this fight with everything that she has is truly inspiring. And the fact that she is still in sanctuary is insane. And during this pandemic, do we know how she's doing, or?
Yeah, it's been really difficult for her during the pandemic, because she relies on the help and generosity of people in the community. People who are members of the church will bring her food, and used to come to the church more often to not only bring her food, but also just sit with her, talk to her. She was taking some classes. There were a lot of programs that were part of the church where members of the community will come, and Edith was always a part of it too. Working with little kids, working with women, with adults, with elderly folks. But now all of that has really changed because of this pandemic. She doesn't have the interaction that she used to have with people. So that's really taken a toll on her. I think just how she feels in her own emotional well-being, I would say. She stays strong. Like, she's one of the strongest people I've ever known. I've learned so much from her. But it's been very difficult. And we've been trying to get the government to agree to grant a stay of removal while this pandemic lasts, so that she can actually be with her family, feel a little bit safer connecting with her family, being with her family. And if she were to contract COVID, actually go to the doctor, go to the hospital, seek the treatment that she needs. We have seen other women in sanctuary who have contracted COVID and have had a very difficult time accessing medical care. Luckily, it wasn't life-threatening for them, but we can't say the same for Edith or for other people. And so that is our worry, keeping her healthy, keeping her safe, and making sure that she still has all the things that she needs, even though there's so much restriction as to who can actually visit her and how much interaction she can have with people outside.
And the nice thing is Edith is actually going to be joining, I guess when this podcast comes out, Edith will be joining us tomorrow, September 22nd at 5:30 Pacific time. If people go to our virtual screening room and join the live Q&A, and people can ask her questions as well. She's amazing, great speaker at this point, from doing so much of her own activism work. And we're really excited to have her, Lizbeth, Brenda, me, and an amazing activist and founder of the Latinx House, Monica Ramirez, join us as well. So it should be a really great conversation and kind of check in with all of the people in the film and people doing incredible work.
Amazing. We will be tuning in to that as well. Zach, Lizbeth, thank you very much for joining us today. It's our first interview on our podcast, on our little podcast here. So thank you. Thank you very much. Zach.
Breaking ground in everything she does. She's got to be
100%. Where can people go to find out more about this film, about the defense fund, the legal fund?
So everything's just at undocumentedlawyer.org. And it's the easiest way to find the link to what we're doing is a 7-day virtual screening window. So we have an awesome platform called Show and Tell. We're using it as a fundraiser for the legal fund. And then we're doing a live Q&A on the 22nd so that people can actually, after they've watched the film on the weekend or whenever, join in for an hour and ask the burning questions and, hear Lizbeth and Adith get to talk for themselves, which is always the best.
Amazing. Well, thank you
Awesome.
both very, very much. And good luck to both of you in the future. And you're welcome here whenever you would like to come back.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the space.
Thank you.
Thank you.